He's like, sir, if you don't take these prescriptions, you're not going to be with us. I said, ma'am, I'm going to change my life. I'm not.
425 pounds you're the thinnest guy at the table right now. So what did you get down to before you saw? We're sharing true personal stories of life-changing transformations. Today on The Doc Dudes, you'll hear from two people who know firsthand how weight loss and cosmetic surgery can give you your life back. Prepare to be moved and inspired. Stick around, you won't want to miss this.
Welcome to The Doc Dudes, your premier podcast for a behind-the-scenes look at the latest in aesthetic medicine. Hosted by the cosmetic surgeons at Graper Harper Cosmetic Surgery in Charlotte, North Carolina, The Doc Dudes brings you interviews with insightful guests, expert tips from experienced medical professionals, and lots of laughs along the way. And now, here's Dr. Garrett Harper, Dr. Robert Graper, and Dr. Evan Zug, also known as The Doc Dudes.
Welcome to The Doc Dudes. I am Dr. Garrett Harper, along with Dr.
Robert Graper
and Dr.
Evan Zug.
All three board-certified plastic surgeons. Today we are diving into the power of traditional weight loss, good nutrition, and body transformation without the hype. We have two special guests today. One is William Shoemaker. Thank you for being with us, William.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, William has lost over 200 pounds the old school way, right? I like that. It's in quotation marks. And then reshaped his body through a series of cosmetic surgery procedures with Dr. Zug that they will kind of go into whatever detail they wish to provide to our listeners. And then we have Betty Fleming, who is a licensed and registered dietitian with over 30 years of experience in nutrition. She holds degrees in business marketing from California State University, and nutritional sciences at the University of Connecticut, plant-based nutrition educator certification from Cornell University, and is a certified lactation consultant as well. Betty is employed as a dietitian at Atrium Health Levine Children's Hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina, and has been for over 28 years. Her responsibilities include medical student resident education, nutrition support for children from birth to 18 years, and dietitian for the Healthy Futures Weight Management Program.
She's bi-coastal.
Welcome to the Doc Dudes. We're so happy to have you guys. Weight loss is a huge topic. Everybody knows it. You can't really get away from it. All the different kind of stories that you hear about and the different ways to lose weight. It's like when I was training, probably when Dr. Graper was training as well, the options to lose weight were like old school, diet and exercise, which William's going to talk a lot about. And then the other was surgically, right? And that was kind of a hard concept for a lot of patients that could potentially benefit from the surgery to really swallow, right? I mean, this was life-altering. It was either going to be a rearrangement of your intestines or it was going to be making your stomach smaller. The idea of surgery to correct what can be thought of as behavioral issues seemed a bit extreme, right? And so now the world's been turned upside down with the GLP-1s. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about just standard nutrition and what a healthy diet is, because I think a lot of changes in what nutritionists tell us to do have happened over the last couple of decades, right? Like
Yes.
We're no longer looking at the food pyramid and just eating as many grains as we possibly can, right? Like
That's right.
A lot of those myths have been busted already. So with it being a hot topic, especially with the popularity of medications such as the semaglutides and the GLP-1s, we'll go into depth with that. But we also want to hear from William, who's had a journey the old school way. And we're just talking about diet and exercise. And so the fact that he's been able to change his life and really transform his body through his journey with Dr. Zug's help is just going to be great. So William, take us back to the beginning. Like what was your highest weight? What happened? Why did you get that big? And what inspired you to start your weight loss journey? And what steps did you take?
Well, it didn't happen overnight, of course.
Yeah.
So I'd say by the time I was 13, I was wearing, size 44, 32 pants. And the weight just was a gradual thing that just kept adding and adding on over the years. Food was also a drug of choice.
Yeah.
for me. If you got a little depressed, you might, have extra chips or whatever. But I'm also a habitual person, so I was more of a habitual eater. So 9 o'clock rolled around, I had a certain thing that I'd done, it was just part of life. And then I was in the grocery business, so food was at my disposal. So I was surrounded by it in every way. And so the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I came across an upper respiratory infection. And so I was down with that for about 3 months and going back and forth. And finally, it got really to the point where I was at home one day. I was living with my mother at the time, and she came home, and I wasn't at the office. And she came home, I was in bed. She's like, this has got to stop. We got to get you, we got to get this fixed. And so where we lived at the time, there's a funeral home on the corner, doctor's office, and a pharmacy. The little saying is, if one can't take care of you, the other one will. And so she's like, come on, we're going to walk over through the funeral home parking lot, because our house was right behind the funeral home. She said, we're going to walk over to the doctor's office.
It's cryptic just to think about, right?
Yeah. And I said, Mom, I don't think I can walk over there. So we get in the van, and I'd been over there multiple times in that 3 months. And so this time she goes with me. And so we walk in there. They've prescribed everything they've had. And this other lady walks in. She said, well, the major problem here is obesity. I'm a mess, and I'm sitting there, and this lady has all these prescriptions she's wanting to give me. She comes back with metformin, all this stuff. There's 8 different medications, and most of them I noticed because my grandmother was on them. Sure. So I noticed the names, and I'm like, I'm not taking this stuff. This isn't going to help my chest, number one. And number two, ma'am, we'll take care of that once we get this resolved. And so she leaves LA, comes back in. Listen, we need to get something put together here. Call me in something. So they figure out something, and so she calls in the prescription, and the other lady comes back, the other doctor, and she's like, you got to take these samples with you. I said, ma'am, you keep your stuff. I'm not taking it with me. She's like, sir, if you don't take these prescriptions, you're not going to be with us. I said, ma'am, I'm going to change my life. I'm not going to do that. She says, sir, you're not going to change. Not at this point. You got to take this stuff with you. I'm like, ma'am, I'm not taking them. No, I'm not taking that. It's not going to fix my world. And I walked out that day without that stuff because I knew that wasn't going to be the deal. So I took the prescription that they gave me for the respiratory infection, and 3 weeks later I was doing better, and by and by I got feeling better. So I laid off the stuff. I cleaned up my act a little bit, and cleaned up my diet some. Wasn't perfect. Lost about 50, 60 pounds roughly in that short amount of time.
What amount of time is that?
About 6-8 months, something like that. I'd started a new job, and those guys are big guys, and we started going out to eat for lunch, had meetings and with bankers, and we were going to Tommy's Barbecue and just all these great places. And so slowly but surely started getting back on that wrong train again. I can hear this woman from 9-10 months ago at that doctor's office, you'll never change. If you don't take these meds, you're not going to be with us. And that started replaying in my mind, just like a recording. And I'm like, the game's up. I really did. I thought that I had...
You thought you were going to die?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was over. And so I'm standing there, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to die, so I'll tell you what. I started making this little deal with the Creator. And you don't do that, but I was like, if you get me out of here alive, I'll start making those steps. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know anything. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but we'll take those steps. And I'm like, so it's cold turkey, huh? This is how this is going to work. So slowly but surely, my palate, expanded, and some things I found I just don't like the smell of or the texture, but we're going with that, and that's kind of how I've done it.
And so over the course of, you're going on 4 years before you saw Dr. Zug, right?
Yeah.
And so in 4 years, you went from a maximum weight of 400 and what?
425.
425 pounds to, I mean, you're the thinnest guy at the table right now. So what did you get down to before you saw Dr. Zug?
It was 225, 220.
So like
Yeah.
200-pound weight loss. And then you come and see Dr. Zug. And then, Evan, why don't you talk a little bit about like what happens to the body, what you saw, and what your approach was going to be to try to help him, get rid of the past, literally, like cut the past away and get him onto a future. So how do you
I'll
approach
first
that?
say this. William's, I think, being very humble. He put in a lot of hard work. And it's incredible to be a part of that. And I'm honored to be able to help, with that last part of his journey. It's pretty incredible that he did all that through diet and exercise and discipline.
Rare.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Yeah.
But, when I saw William, he was a perfect candidate for, body contouring and massive weight loss type surgeries. All those surgeries are very unique to every patient. They're all different. But he didn't have any excess, he didn't really have any excess fat. It was just excess skin.
Yeah.
And a lot of patients, we want them to be in the ideal body weight for a good 6 months to a year before they have these types of surgeries, and make sure their, nutrition is up to date and they're on a multivitamin if they've had a gastric bypass, and, all their labs are appropriate. But William was a perfect candidate. He just needed me to help him get to that last step. Sure. So what we did for him was an upper body lift with free nipple graft. So as he lost all that weight, he had a lot of extra skin on his chest and over his pec muscles, and his nipples and areolas were sagging down. So we wanted to put those in an ideal position, and then excise that excess skin in a thoughtful way, so the scars are kind of hidden in his creases. So like in his pec muscle, that's where we've got the scars for him. And then we did a circumferential lower body lift. So, and it was a fleur-de-lis. So what that means is we removed excess skin in a horizontal and vertical component to really just get rid of all that extra skin.
Yeah. So one incision's kind of in your waistband, right?
Yeah.
Like wherever you kind of hold your shorts. Mm-hmm. Right where the elastic is on a pair of gym shorts. That's kind of where one incision that goes all the way around. And then he's got an incision that's on the front, the very center of his body, that goes from basically his sternum, his breastplate, through his belly button and kind of meets that other incision so that you can tighten them in multiple directions, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Any other surgeries? Because with weight loss surgery, we always talk about staging them. But I mean, typically on most massive weight loss patients of this magnitude, they start talking about their legs, start talking about their arms, start talking about their neck, start talking about everything. Mm-hmm. And so did you stage him? Did you have another surgery? Did anything else?
I staged him because I felt like the amount of work I needed to do, I want to keep my surgeries less than 6 hours. I think it's safer to do it like that. And the recovery, logistically, when you do arms and legs at the same time, can be a big deal.
Hard to get around.
Hard to, get around, wipe your butt, do anything, really.
Yeah.
But so we did his legs. And so we did an extended vertical thigh lift. So basically the incision goes on the medial part of your thigh up to the groin and up in the kind of your underwear crease there.
Sure.
And
that allows you to tighten also the thigh skin in thigh is a cylinder. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to just kind of do it in one dimension. You want to do it in two. So you want to.
And we did that like 3 months after the first surgery.
Perfect.
Was it 3 or 4 months?
Yeah. About 3.5 months.
It also gives you an opportunity to clean up anything from any of the prior surgeries, which I always have with any massive weight loss surgery. We just kind of that's when you just kind of nip tuck.
But I think the most important thing about his case was he was a perfect candidate. It was just extra skin.
Right.
We see a lot of patients who come in who want to have, the massive weight loss surgeries, but they still need to lose a little bit more weight.
Sure.
And they don't quite understand that the result is going to be so much better. His result's incredible.
Yeah.
Because it was just extra skin. It wasn't extra fat as well.
Right. And so, Dr. Graper kind of touched on it a little bit when he said, it's rare to have the patient that can just do this the old school way. So, I mean, that's wild. I mean, it's awesome to hear your story. It's awesome to hear what motivated you. And the fact that you were able to do it literally cold turkey is incredible. But, you know, the statistics in this country are scary with just what obesity and all the things that leads to. It's frightening. And I feel like we're kind of killing ourselves through our diet and through a lot of kind of lies that were told to us. And I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but I do think that like we're waking up to the fact that maybe some of the recommendations in the past were told to us. There
might be like a sidetrack. There's something else behind it.
Interior relatives.
Yeah. We're digging our graves with a fork for sure.
Right. So when somebody comes to you and says they want to lose weight, I'm sure you get all into what they're currently doing. And I think for the most part, a lot of us know what's terrible to eat, right? But like, what do the experts say? Like, what do you tell the patient?
Sure. So first of all, William, congratulations. To answer Dr. Graper's question that he is really rare, I too have, it's a tenacity streak. I don't know how to describe it, but I had a similar situation as a kid where my family said, you're never going to do it. And it's just instant. Like, yes, I am. And so it lives in certain people. It probably lives in all of us, but there are certain people that are more sensitive to that. So congratulations.
I just had to get to rock bottom, I think.
And that's sometimes that's where we all go when we have to really face what we need to do. So in terms of healthy diet, first of all, I try not to use the word, even though this is what my title is diet.
Yeah.
DIET is usually TEMP for me.
Yeah.
It's always a quick fix. Let me lose 20 pounds before I go on that cruise with my high school reunion, or I want to look really good in a bathing suit. That automatically is going to set you up for failure. So first of all, there are no bad foods as long as they're whole foods.
Okay.
If it's processed, and we've gone in this nation, we've gone from processed to, and then a little bit of ultra processed, it's now all ultra processed. Right. So if you're buying something.
Tell us.
Yes.
I hear that word all the time, and I think I know what processed and ultra processed means. What's a good way for people to think about that?
Sure. So a processed food would be one that's been manipulated just a little bit. It's sort of healthy. So think about maybe like a white bread. I'm going to give you a basic example. White bread that we bake, and then they enrich it. So that was the first tip.
Chips.
Chips are as long as, so that was the first entry into taking all the nutrition out of it and putting it back in. Potato chips are another great example. So yes, they're fried, they've got some preservatives, so they are processed.
But not ultra processed.
Ultra processed is the next level. So now we're talking about chemical type flavorings. We're talking about liquid with fat-induced sugars that are layering on cereals.
As an example.
Fruit Loops.
Oh.
Yeah.
Captain Crunch.
Takis.
Talkies.
Those are really popular
middle
hot
school.
Mexican chips.
So they're like a Dorito. Imagine a pool where we put a Dorito, a Cheeto, and a combo all together. We add tons and tons of spice and salt and sugar and fat to stick it all together. It's so bad that you leave marks in your nail beds when you're eating them.
And a lot of those things that they're adding are like banned in other countries. But in the U.S., it's okay.
Because one of the things about the U.S., it's good. We're a free economy. So if you come up with a great idea, if we come up with a really great idea at this table, we can market it. We can put it together if we have the backing, and we can do it. Should we? Not clear, but we can, which is one of the neat things about some of our inventions are amazing. But then we don't stop to think, should we be doing this? The food world is fraught with lots of special interest groups. You've got the fast food group. You've got the sugar group. If you've ever listened to a government meeting with the sugar people, they will blow your popsicle stand with, well, yeah, Fruit Loops are a great breakfast. They're healthy. It's like, really? Not anymore. And they're the different Fruit Loop from when all of us at this table had them as a kids. If they were, and they've been around for forever, but they're a much different cereal now.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what Kellogg's and that's what all the different companies used to tell us, was that this was the making of a health. Look, you're adding milk to it. How can it not be healthy? And then they'd have like a beautiful little family all sitting down by the table and all eating their,
Sure.
cereal, when in actuality, the more ultra processed we get, because like processed is like adding sugar, adding salt to make something like kind of benign taste good, right? It's like you get a fruit cup and then all of a sudden you put like some sugary water in the fruit cup. But the ultra processed is
the
like
next level.
What's a Fruit Loop? I mean, or a fruit and roll up. Like, what the heck is that? Like, nobody even, why
Right.
are they even allowed to say fruit? It's really strange. It's like they'll have a picture of an orange on an orange Fanta, and an orange isn't even an ingredient.
Right.
Which is like wild. It's like false advertising, and it's just insane. And admittedly, I told you before we started the podcast, I've gone on a little bit of a rabbit hole with all this stuff, because I felt like I needed to make a change in my own kind of diet, because I feel like, especially in the surgery world, we're operating, and then all of a sudden we're scarfing down whatever we can eat. And if I forgot to bring lunch, it's a bunch of pretzels or peanut butter pretzels or something like that. And I just kind of felt bad. And so,
But I mean, honestly, in a pinch, that would be way better than sitting and eating candy or a
Right.
candy bar
Right.
or just plain old chips. And at least you got some protein and some B vitamins in that.
well, that's true. Well, now I won't feel quite as bad about eating
So, back in medical school, the food pyramid was it. It was all you needed. Tell us how that's evolved.
So the food, when I was a kid, it was the 4 squares. That was what I was taught in school, and it worked. You get your little tray, and they all had the square components, and they had them all in there. You got a fruit and a vegetable, because they were going to have both of them in that group. We started getting fancy when we decided to do the pyramid, and that didn't go over well. And it's been documented in studies that people don't understand it. They understand the 4 squares, and there was no issues. There was also not a whole lot of processing or manipulating of food.
Right.
And women were still at home
Yeah.
making meals and grocery shopping. It's when we women could go back to work and support our families as well, which is awesome. We had to start getting some easier foods to prepare. So it's where TV dinners came in, or Stouffer's, who makes those lasagnas that you buy and you can bake in the oven.
Those bad?
Yes.
It depends on which one you get. It depends what you put with it. If you just ate the whole thing, it's not great. But if you and the biggest thing is portion size. So if you have that with a salad, it's fine. I mean, it's better than stopping through McDonald's.
Would that be considered a processed food?
Yes,
And don't you think that's what
that's my opinion.
If you make it at home out of the same ingredients, would not be processed?
No, one of the things that for me personally as a dietitian, is what do you put in it to keep it shelf stable? What do you put in it to make it cook the way it does? And is it like a low-fat version? So now we've got cheese that you're manipulating. It's not real cheese.
Right.
So when you start moving around ingredients, you start losing the feel, the taste, the pleasure. I've had the pleasure of going to Italy twice now, and they eat all whole everything, and I don't see an obese Italian anywhere. I mean, I might see a little grandpa in the corner. He's entitled. Right, and he's entitled to have a little extra,
a little extra
LBs.
vino.
Yeah. But I mean, I just don't see it, and everything is delicious and it's whole. There are no.
If you made the pasta and you bought just straight up cheese, and that would be okay.
That would be great.
But what you buy out of Stouffer's, to extend its shelf life, manipulates it enough that our body metabolizes it differently.
It's just you're not going to get the same satiety, and that's the name of the game. Is feeling good after you eat. There's so much more into just I made a meal, here it is.
Do you think that is intentional from the food industry, or do you think it is something they do to make it shelf stable, and as a byproduct, it doesn't affect the satiety center, so we eat more of it?
No, I think it's so much more. And I obviously want your opinion, but to steer this, I think that there's no doubt that if you look at the data and look historically kind of what happened, a lot of the people that went over into the food industry came from the tobacco industry. And they were the scientists that were given the task of making cigarettes as addictive as possible. And they did it. And then there was a huge buyout from R.J. Reynolds and from the tobacco industries for like Kellogg's and Post and all those things. It was a huge acquisition. I mean, it's historically, you can look it up. It's one of the largest payouts and takeovers in our nation's history from a business standpoint. And so those same scientists then were tasked with making our food the exact same as, addictive as possible, adding sugars to these things. I mean, they've done research where they've taken people and looked at, we talk about satiety. We talk about your body saying, you know what, I'm full, I don't need anymore. And like processed and ultra processed foods do not stimulate that at all. So you can continue to consume these things. Whereas if you've got organic food, you will eat less. Literally your portion will be less. Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's made to do that. And so not only is it just like sugar, which is a compounding issue for everything, but like you go look at the tomato sauce you want to pour, you want to make some pasta. Sugar's been added to it. Mm-hmm. And all sorts of other things have been added to these foods that
can stay on the shelf for a long
forever.
time.
The preservatives. I mean, there's like the McDonald's French fry is made out of a particular potato that is a long potato so that they can cut them and have long fries that look pretty coming out of the box, right?
And then they also take the potato and mix oil and sugar in it.
After they've put a pesticide on this, that's so powerful that the farmers that have these russet potatoes can't go outside their house for 5 days. That's
Really?
how terrible it is.
Wow.
I mean, it's wild, all the stuff that has been added to these. And the preservatives are there so that on the inside of the potato, you never get those little black streaks because they'll throw those potatoes away.
That was one of my food science projects in college at UConn. It was to just do something with food and see what happens. So I did the traditional.
Sure.
I'm sure everybody else has probably done this. I did a Twinkie and a pack of McDonald's French fries.
And what did you do? I mean,
you
what's
put
the
it under
study?
glass and you just examine it and watch it for a year.
Watch it.
Yeah.
So someone ate my Twinkie.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you put a Twinkie under glass and didn't eat it for a year?
And it literally, somebody ate it.
It was
A little dry. The fries did not mold.
Didn't change.
Come on.
They got a little dried out. They weren't I wasn't going to eat them, but they did not mold.
Yeah. You know a drumstick, like the ice cream cone?
Yeah.
With the ice cream on top? They're great, right? Go ahead and put that in the center of the table and then come back a week later. It won't have melted.
No.
It's not ice cream.
No.
I swear to you.
Okay,
Like, it's absolutely wild.
I throw down the challenge for the office if you guys could get a box of those and check them out.
I think that's going to be great.
I don't know. I've never done that. I blew up a lot of other food, but in food science, but I didn't.
If you
do
look
that.
at the box, it says like ice cream product or icy cream product. They're not allowed to call it ice cream. Like, it's absolutely insane.
Wow,
But let me-
what we put in our bodies.
So let me then kind of, because I'm pediatrics and I really want to not
Which is
let
where
that
these
off the table.
habits start.
What are my grandchildren eating? I want you to talk about that.
Yeah. So when we
Tell you what I
had,
feed my kids.
yeah, this is not a confessional.
they'll eat.
My habit is not on. There's no confessions today. If you look at the Mad Men era, the 60s, the chic parties, the party foods, we stopped having those, again, when we changed the workforce and women and men were working together. Kids now had to either fend for themselves or they had babysitters. And this is I believe it's a New York Times or one of the New York journals. They did an article with the CEOs of these companies that make major snack foods like Lunchables,
Sure.
Totino's pizza rolls.
Yep.
And this one gentleman, when he saw the damage that was being done to the diets of his grandchildren, realized was this such a smart thing? They took all those party foods and are now marketing them to our most tender of population as snacks.
Right.
Okay. So let's just lay down the law. A snack is not a party food. It is a food that you are missing from the 4 food groups. I'm going to go back to the 4s. Meat, milk, fruit and vegetables, and grains. If you didn't get enough of those groups, that's your snack. If you've eaten all of that and you're still hungry, then you get to have a treat.
But if those aren't processed or ultra processed, the amount of them that you will eat will be less. You will actually
You will eat
control your own portion.
You will eat your
because
portion
you'll be
size.
full.
Right.
That's exactly right.
You'll eat, and your portions are your hands, your hand.
Right.
That's how you measure your portion sizes. So, so yes, you will be fine. It is in the process, these ultra processed foods, where things go wrong,
Right.
because you then become addicted to a salt level. Everything has to be salted. I have kids that have bottles of hot sauce that they take to school with them to douse their food in. School food is another example where they went from a tray. So I grew up on a farm. My parents immigrated from Spain. So we had paella and foods like that. I was like, ugh. But I would like American food, right? Now I'm like, oh, why didn't I, eat all of that, right? So I would go to school and get meatloaf, which I'd never seen before, which was so cool. But it was a turf that was served to you. And so you would get exposed to different foods. And once a year, you had to eat that if you wanted to have 2 pieces of Halloween candy. So that's where you had to eat spinach.
Yeah.
Right? But now it's a offer. So every school is a buffet.
Yeah.
And so kids can pick and choose, which creates picky eaters.
Yeah.
And they can divert and get just a carbohydrate, which would be a
whatever
roll.
they like.
Right.
Yeah.
And every school serves 3 different flavors of milk. They have white milk, which very few kids pick because it usually isn't rotated.
Sweet enough or
No,
something?
sometimes it's spoiled because nobody drinks it.
Oh, wow.
Because the competition is strawberry and chocolate milk. Okay. They have a la carte. You can bring money to school, and most innocent parents don't realize. They're just thinking maybe they're going to get an extra little snack, maybe a fruit cup or something. They're getting chips. In some schools, they're getting drinks equivalent to the sugar content of a soda. They're getting ice cream. They're getting cookies that aren't home baked or kitchen baked, but like an Otis Spunkmeyer type cake cookie, which again is just a lot more than these kids should ever have, and they're not eating what they should.
And I know that, we could talk about nutrition for days, right? There are literally, you could get degrees in nutrition like you have. So this is not something that we're going to figure out in a 45-minute podcast or anything. But is there any recommendation for you? Is there any book that you've read recently or guide or anything that our listeners could say, you know what, I'm going to go on Audible and I'm going to get this book and I'm going to listen to it. And then I'll give you my recommendation that I think is great, but I'd love to hear what you think from a nutritional standpoint, here's a great guideline. And then I do need you to comment, because some people in the office have a problem and it needs to be addressed, and they won't take my advice. But I'd love to know what you think about Diet Coke.
Oh, I would too.
All right, well, let's just start there.
I'm not pointing fingers at any other 2 doctors that are at the table right now besides myself.
Okay.
But some people have problems.
Got it. So diet Coke, diet foods was originally created for diabetics.
Okay.
Well, much of the country is on a pathway to type 2 diabetes. The obesity rate is we have more obese people in our nation than we do healthy people.
Correct.
Currently. So as long as you're following a balanced diet, so it's not perfect, it's just balance. And one day you may not do so well. You had a long surgery day. You're eating these, cheese cracker or peanut butter crackers. Sure. The next day you do better. They're okay in moderation. I've had people come to me that drink 2 and 3, 12 packs a day. That is not moderation. That is addiction.
What is 1 a day a reasonable thing or not?
I'd love to see it go to maybe 2 or 3 a week.
And the reason that it's bad, we've seen the rat studies where they gave all this saccharin or artificial sweetener, but they were getting, the equivalent of 1,000 a day.
Right.
And they got cancers. But, when they did a level like 1 a day, they didn't have any problems.
Yeah, you can argue people do sweet tea, people do coffee. So it all depends on your genetics. If there's things in your family like autoimmune diseases, like GI diseases, colon cancers, things like that, I probably would back away, not have so many, find some other. There's some natural sodas out there that made with real sugar, but if that's what you're looking for, that sugary flavor, then why not have just a natural soda?
Right.
Like a real old-fashioned one, not one that's highly processed.
So
That's
is
ultra processed.
Right.
Well, yeah. So
And has a fake sugar in it that's going to
trick
So is
your
it better
body.
to have a non-processed 300 calorie drink versus a processed 0-calorie drink?
So you can maybe mix the two together.
That's not an answer.
Not an answer. One a day is probably not going to be what sends you to the grave.
I wasn't thinking it would.
Yeah. But it's making sure that you get everything else. You should be doing everything else.
Does it change your satiety levels?
One a day shouldn't. As long as you're not using it as a meal replacement or you're using it as a replacement for other things you should be eating. So I'm not gonna skip lunch. I'm just gonna drink a bunch of Diet Cokes. That's not gonna work.
What if you skip lunch and drink one Diet Coke?
Nah, it's not gonna work.
And you say it doesn't work because you're not getting the food groups?
You need to nourish your body, and it's different methodologies. Some people are really good with 3 square meals a day, the whole 3 squares. Some people like me are better on 6 mini meals because I am so active when I'm working that if I find I can keep my blood sugars at a same pace or normal level, then I do okay.
You get hangry.
Well, I work with many, many, many doctors, so I can't be hangry.
So is there like a resource? Is there a book? Is there something that you would recommend people listen to or read that can help guide them? Like
there is no good book that's going to tell you what you need to know.
Okay.
What I would say is, first and foremost, there are no bad foods. The ultra-processed foods are off the table, but in a healthy diet, eat what you think you should be eating. So I go back to those 4 squares. You should have 6 to 8 servings of a whole grain. You should have 2 to 3 servings of a protein. I love eggs. They're a complete amino acid. They got a bad rap for cholesterol, but we make our own cholesterol, so eggs really don't affect them that much.
Right.
However, if you do have hyperlipidemia, your doctors will counsel you. Lean meats, fishes. You can do plant-based, which is why I went back and got this teaching degree. That's also a phenomenal diet. You can do 1 day plant-based, and it's pretty good, actually. Yeah. And then you get your dairy. Dairy is the group that we're missing the most of. We have about 50% of our children in our nation that are vitamin D deficient. So it means you won't grow strong bones, strong teeth, and your immune system. So 1 or 2 servings of milk. You can add you can count if you make milk and you add a little bit of coffee to make a latte. That would count. It's not ideal, but for me it would count.
Cheese counts.
Cheese for me is a topping. It's a more fatty, delicious. It's more like an avocado kind of.
It's more like a snack.
It's more like an accent.
Okay, that's not in the 4 foods though.
It's a dairy. I just wouldn't rely on it to give me much nutrition.
Do they process cheese when you go to Aldi and get a thing of white cheddar, a block of cheddar cheese, or shredded cheese at the grocery store?
The shredded, anything in a bag, yes.
Yeah.
You want to do what like the folks in Italy do. They go to a cheese shop and they buy a wedge of it, and they do it.
It ain't pasteurized. I mean, there's all sorts of processing that goes on with our cheese.
And they feed their their cows differently. So
Correct.
Their cows are fed in a.
It's not corn.
No,
these are grass-fed cows, and that makes a big difference.
They make a different protein as well. They make
exactly
an A1
right.
protein, and I'm sorry, A2 protein versus A1. It's easier to digest. It's not, if you have some issues with lactose or the proteins in it, it's easier.
How are you getting the dairy? Because I'll bet us gentlemen here maybe put a little milk in our coffee, but otherwise I don't drink milk. It's not that I don't like it. It's just, when would I drink milk?
When you drink that Diet Coke.
So I'd have a glass of milk instead of a Diet Coke.
I would.
Can I put a Red Bull in there?
I don't know.
But I mean, do you eat eggs?
Oh yeah.
But so you can do a Fairlife milk. You guys could stock your refrigerator.
So do, and it's 30 grams of protein, and you can get them with 42 grams of protein.
That's the core protein. I'm talking the regular, straight up Fairlife.
Yeah.
The chocolate is a great recovery drink for athletes. If you have kids that are on the field and they want to come back for a drink, not the muscle milks or anything, but one of those, and an hour or two later, a decent dinner, phenomenal. I just passed it out to our residents when they were doing a lecture.
Well, and we all go to Costco. Like, you can get the Fairlife, you can get the 30 gram.
That's your dairy is really pretty, for you, is mostly just milk.
Yes.
And yogurt.
Okay.
And yogurt.
So that's one of the 4s. Got to drink milk.
Got to drink milk.
Okay, done. Betty, I'm on.
But then don't forget the fruits and vegetables.
Right.
They're the powerhouses.
So those are the easy ones.
You think, but they're not. A lot of people.
Apple a day.
Keeps you away. I got it.
Good fiber.
Yeah,
Can be
apple
good
a
for
day is
that.
awesome.
The reason why you have both is that apples and fruits and things are usually grown or come from trees.
Yeah.
So they're pollinated that way. And so they have a different compound. They're more fibrous and they have a lot of the antioxidants that we look for, like in berries and apples and things. Vegetables are grown in the ground. They have a lot of minerals that we need, trace minerals that are really important for digestion, for the immune system, for hair, nail, skin growth, and
But you also want these crops, like these plants, to be coming. Like we do monocrops now. So like our farmers are only planting the exact same thing over and over again, and then the soil becomes like not enriched. We know for a fact that things get more minerals and more vitamins
You're talking about
when
rotating
you're
crops?
rotating crops.
Right.
And
So
we
Don't
do
they
that anymore.
fertilize the field anyway?
So
They
farmers
pesticide the field.
farmers are actually
Fertilizers aren't going to give you any vitamins. They're just going to like kill the bugs.
Pesticides aren't going to give you any minerals either.
No, they're going to give you cancer.
bam.
I think he's becoming a bit of a zealot.
No. I'm telling you, we have like our biggest fun. I mean, you can talk about Russia, China, all you want. What is ruining and like going to kill America are not these other countries. It's our diet. And our nutrition has gotten completely out of whack for forces that are beyond our control. It happens at an early age. We get like inundated with, kind of what you said, just choose what you want to eat. And I'm as guilty as, anybody. I mean, my kids, it's like, it's so easy to, my so-and-so, one of my kids wants macaroni and cheese. And I know that if I make macaroni and cheese, they're not going to complain. So I'll just make mac and cheese all the time or whatever it is.
There would be the crux of the issue in pediatrics.
Yeah.
It's, so getting back to really quick, the farmers are paid sometimes to not farm or to only make certain crops that we can trade with other countries.
Right.
So in terms of children, the society in general is shaming parents.
Right.
You're a good parent only if they have the gaming systems or the this or the that or the shoes or the hair things or the nails, or you're giving them the foods that they see on TV.
Right.
If you just, in my case, this is what I have. If you don't want to eat it, that's okay. You don't have to, but I'm not making anything else.
That's what I
And
like.
that's what's considered, oh, you must be a really hard,
bad
bad parent. Right? So this is a kid, my son, I served him
It
asparagus.
makes me mad when people act like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I served him asparagus and he looked at me, he goes, "You're trying to kill me, aren't you? Those are spears." I said, "They're not spears." He was really small. I go, "You will like them." He now eats them by the pound. Yeah. So you just have to keep the exposure. You don't have to make them eat them. You can make them try one, but then you got to cook it well.
Right.
And that's the other thing. We don't know how to cook.
But I feel like if we just kind of look at the timeline of what's happened in our country with our food and what's happened with our diseases and chronic diseases and all these types of things.
How far back are we going? We're going back to Neanderthals?
Go back to the 50s.
Oh, no, let's go way
Go
back.
back to the 60s.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
Sure.
Neanderthals, hunters and gatherers.
Yeah.
So women would stay back. They'd take care of the camp. They would hunt and gather all nuts and seeds and things to keep the camp going and living.
Yeah.
The guys would go out and kill a dinosaur, which
Right.
took a long time.
Yeah.
They'd bring back one of these beasts and they would feed on it. So they would go through these feasts and famines.
Yes.
Which is how our bodies are. They're designed. This is
Yeah.
how they work. We then eventually, these same cave people are like, this is kind of really hard work to roam the entire United States. We'll keep it here and try to feed ourselves. Let's set up camp in one place and let's see if we can't grow some of those things. And there became the early ideas of farming. Now let's bring water to it. So now we're going to commercialize it a little bit. We're going to make it a bigger enterprise. How about we don't try to find a dinosaur? We bring animals that we can raise.
Sure.
And this is the start of all of it.
Yeah. Chickens,
So-
cows, all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
The other half the rabbit hole, I don't know if you went down, is if I were to I'm going to throw out some countries. Just tell me what their base food is. If I say Spain, what do you think? Like their base, like what they,
Rice.
Rice.
there you go,
I would
rice.
go rice.
Italy would be
Pasta.
pasta or polenta. You go to Asian countries, it's the same
Rice.
thing, rice. Okay. Ireland,
Potato.
Potato.
United States,
Corn.
Diet
Chicken
Coke.
nuggets.
all of it. We take all of those foods, we call them American, and we serve them through a fast food window. We don't have the native food I have. If I were to get close, to be Thanksgiving, but the real Thanksgiving. I had to actually cook that dinner in school.
Right.
But we can't cook like that.
But we
every day.
also can't go back, and it's hard for people to conceptualize, oh, let's eat like the Neanderthals did. I'm talking about like our grandparents. Our grandparents weren't fat. Our grandparents didn't have diabetes. Our grandparents didn't have all these chronic diseases that we have right now.
They didn't
So
have processed food.
That's exactly right.
They didn't have.
So that's what we have to eliminate.
So anything in a bag is a processed food.
Yeah. So, you know,
How about the salad bags?
those, you know what, as a dietitian, if you ate those, I would be happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're not going to buy all that lettuce individually, and I'm okay with
And those
that.
carrots that now come cleaned
Pre-cut
up,
and
those are
everything.
awesome.
Yeah, and you know, if you'll eat them, I'm happy. That's a level of processing. that
Roasted
may-
broccoli versus all natural.
Oh,
But the crazy thing is
Roasted.
like if you
Really?
I love it.
Yeah, but which has got better nutrition?
If you roast it well, both.
Okay.
If you kill it, then or you boil it or you
Make it dead?
Yeah.
We need to grow and eat our own food and cook it.
Well, not only that, but
That's what we need to
if
do.
you don't have the time to do that, we have amazing markets here in Charlotte, right? Like there's tons of farmers markets where you can go and get all these. And what I'm telling you is that you don't have to buy as much volume, as much weight of non-processed foods in order to get you full and feeling well.
So now you find the crux of it's expensive to eat healthy because they're trying to say buy the same volume of what
But you
they
don't have to.
And that is where we're not being. There's no education on that
Right.
unless you connect with somebody like me, or you
Right.
or you really do your research. That's why when you're asking me, is there a book? Well, I'm actually in talks with two of my former pediatricians that used to work with me. Of we need to write a book. And
Yes, you do. I was about to say, Betty, where's your book?
we're just trying to explore
Betty's book.
what we want to do.
It's the blue book
but
of nutrition.
It really, you keep asking us, and I'm going to try to answer it. So how you eat healthy is you stick to those. Every plate, it's 3 meals a day. Every plate should have one representation of each of the food groups.
That's unprocessed.
As close as you can get. And if you want to go all the way in,
Tyson
yes,
chicken nuggets don't count as like
you can.
unprocessed.
Peanut butter and jelly.
It's okay.
Is okay?
Yeah.
So peanut butter's not processed?
It is, but if you get the natural peanut butter, it don't spread on bread. It's
Less sugar,
really
all that.
So
you
the
can
Jif,
get
Jif doesn't count?
You can get the lower salt ones. You can get the lower sugar ones.
Just Jif or Peter Pan? Pecan?
Yeah. The reason why they're processed is they spread.
Better than a Diet Coke.
So I can
Yeah.
still keep eating my peanut butter?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you start to eat things that don't have the processed sugars and all that, you just gotta. It's resetting your norm.
Yeah,
But
but
if you make yourself do it, you will start to be like, oh my gosh, like this actually tastes good by itself. Like it's wild. Okay, 1 minute, and then we've got to wrap it up.
This is the flash round.
Nope, it's not. It's not. It's literally. I just want your 30 seconds, 2 cents on GLP-1s.
So they work. And they got a bad rap from the celebrity when it first came out. They actually work for people who don't have the tenacity of William. So these are folks that have tried everything. They've tried every diet in the world, but they keep getting this static, this messaging, you gotta eat, you gotta eat, you gotta eat, because they've overridden or they've rewired the way they think. Oprah Winfrey does a lot of interviews with people that have the same thing. She did too, and she has her own series of shows that she does. She actually had a doctor on there that treats people. She's one of the best doctors in treating using GLP-1s. They remove this static. They remove that you gotta eat, you gotta eat, you gotta eat, because it's reconnecting all of those communications between all your hormones for satiety and desires to eat. You still have to follow a healthy diet, but it makes it so much easier because the noise is quieted. These folks get down to a reasonable weight, and then you're tapered off until you may have to be on it for a while, but you will lose the weight like William did in a setting that's healthy by doctors who know what they're doing. So you really have to find someone that understands how these work. Not just because there's a lot of folks out there, even internet versions that will do it, but they do work, especially for people who struggle, who have said, I've tried it all. And that's why it's important to not shame that class. Yeah.
So that group of patients on the GLP-1s would need supplements. That would be reasonable?
Would be reasonable, and they would also need some nutrition education. That's why we're in a weight management group for pediatrics, and we partner with other groups that are using these things because eventually our kids age out into the adult world, right?
Yeah.
But yes, they would get that training.
But you've got to start those those habits early. It's
Are they
so
putting children
hard to
on the
break
GLP
like
ones?
William's habits.
Sorry?
I mean, he said when he was young.
Are they putting kids on those GLP ones yet? Are they indicated for kids less than
Older, like teenagers, like I
Less
think
than
18.
18?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if there's a 14-year-old kid with a size 44 waist, like GLP-1s are okay, right?
Why not?
Don't know yet because they're still growing. Their brains still haven't all fully connected and
Sure.
they're growing well. I would say no.
Okay.
Which is why we do a group that we do. That my clinic was this afternoon, as a matter of fact. And so we're really trying to remove the shaming, get them off of social media, because that's another rabbit hole they go down where they hear a lot of things they shouldn't, and just give them a healthy image of their body. I'm grateful that not a lot of them are now seeking out, I want to get like a surgery, like a Roux-en-Y or something, because that did not work at all.
Yeah, those days are gone.
I think that was the travesty that kind of led to some more research. The research in obesity, and like I said, Oprah does tag this a lot because she's had a lifelong issue with this, is going to be groundbreaking. We're going to understand more about it's because these injections you take aren't for the stomach, they're for the brain.
Yeah.
And this is the control center of telling you. If you're born with a really strong, I'm sure you've been called hard-headed, William, like a time or two.
Willful.
Yeah.
That's
Gritty.
a really good quality to have, and in such a polished way that he has. But so anyway, it would really help get somebody on their way. It's not going to solve all your issues. You still have to follow a diet.
So what about people who have a normal diet, good diet? Do they need any supplements at all?
If you eat from all the food groups, 5 to 6 days a week, no.
You're just fortifying your urine. You're making expensive urine,
Exactly.
right?
So yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we could go for days. William, thank you so much for sharing your journey, which is incredible. The fact that you were able to have the tenacity that Betty keeps talking about to be able to do it the old school way is amazing for people out there that are worried about their nutrition and want to know more kind of fact-based things about eating healthy. Obviously, people like Betty have devoted their lives to helping us get educated so we can make better decisions, because the chronic disease epidemic that is in this country is nowhere else. It is only here. There's not another country that looks like us, that eats like us, that eats the ultra-processed foods that we do. So I'll give a shout out to a book called Good Energy, and it's a great book for everybody to look at. And it can really, it's got science behind it. It's got a lot of studies.
Can I tag team a book on you too?
Yeah.
A good cookbook.
I asked you to do that.
Well, I know,
wanted a
but you
book from
you said nutrition.
Oh, okay.
A cookbook.
I love that.
Ina Garden. She makes fabulous
Oh, the
recipes.
Barefoot Contessa, I love her.
But
And she loves Jeffrey. I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, I wish you loved me like Ina loved Jeffrey.
Jeffrey is an amazing man as well. But
I mean,
it's amazing. Have you read her autobiography?
well, no, but I just watched the show all the time.
Okay, you need to read her autobiography. It's amazing.
I want to move to Montauk just to be with them.
I'll be your cook.
I would love that.
So
All right.
yeah, that's a great cookbook.
Yeah.
Get into the kitchen and start cooking is the best experience you could have.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much to our guests. Betty, thank you so much. William, thank you so much. If you've got questions or topics you'd like for us to cover, visit ghsurgery.com and click on the Doc Dudes from the homepage to submit your questions and ideas. Be sure to subscribe to the Doc Dudes so you never miss an episode. A new episode drops the last Tuesday of each month. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts, as well as our website. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook to stay up to date on new episodes and other information about our practice. This is the Doc Dudes signing out. I am Dr. Garrett Harper, along with
Robert Graper.
and
Dr. Evan Zug.
thanks so much, guys.